Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Dragon Dream, and I'm going to be sipping on some acai tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you can find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, burnt sienna, which I have a tendency to call rust, ultramarine blue, Mars black, and deep yellow. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that I'll be using for some drawing, and then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, I have a number 12 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 1 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. Of course you can switch those up too. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same type of paint and brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting our background. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are black and blue. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make myself a nice, beautiful, dark navy blue color, and I'm going to paint the whole thing that color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate out a little bit of my ultramarine blue, because I want that for later for a couple of the smaller details. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add black to my blue, but I'm going to add it a little bit at a time. I pre-mixed myself a little bit over here so you could kind of see where I'm headed with the dark blue. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit of black. Let me just turn this so we can see it a little bit better. And then I'm going to start spinning it around in my blue. The reason why I'm going to do a very little bit of black at a time is because the black can very easily take over and make this look black very easily and quickly. So I just do a little bit at a time and I spin it around. This is looking pretty good to me. And I also know that this paint will get a little bit darker as it dries. So I don't want to bring it all the way black by accident, unless you want a black background, in which case go for it and just make a black background. But if you want it to be a nice dark blue, this is looking pretty good for me. So once I've got it in the color that I want, I'm just going to paint the whole background with this color. I most likely will do 2 layers of paint for this background, because I know that when using dark colors like this, if I'm not utilizing, if it's not going to be just black, if I'm going to go for some other color, I know that because I'm using a white surfaced canvas, that my paint, regardless of how thick or how great the opacity is, it will most likely look a little streaky for if you just have a single coat on it, because it is showing some of that white canvas from underneath, and it's really difficult to get a nice solid coat with a dark color on a white background. So I most likely, after I get this first coat done, will let it dry, and then I'll put another coat right on top of it. If you have good coverage with yours and you're digging the way that it looks, feel free to not do a second coat on yours. You can also paint along the edges of your canvas. That's going to make the canvas look nice and professional and like it's got a fully complete application of the paint all throughout the canvas. So you can do that. And then once you've got the entire background done, if you want to do a second layer, again, feel free to do so. I also like to take my brush to make sure that I have a nice even coat, as I like to move it back and forth just across. This will thin out any really thick paint spots. It'll give me a nice even coat. And then if I want to do a second coat on it, I certainly will. And then we are going to be utilizing our piece of chalk for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your large brush away, take out your piece of chalk, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to draw an outline for our dragon. I'm going to be using my chalk. I do want to forewarn you before you start the step that you want to make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some other kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide you through a series of basic shapes and some dots. We'll connect the dots, and hopefully by the time we're done, we'll have a nice basic outline that we'll be able to use for our coloring in process during painting. So I'm going to start my dragon with the head, and then we'll just build the body and the wings and the tail around that. So I'm going to have my dragon's head almost in the middle of my canvas, somewhere around here, with the nose kind of turning down. So if you find the center of your canvas top to bottom, I'd say mine is right about here and left to right. That's going to be almost the center of the head, somewhere in through there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the left, maybe about an inch, inch and a half, and then over to the right, maybe an inch, inch and a half. Can be up or down, doesn't matter. And then you're just going to make yourself a circle. So it doesn't have to be a perfect circle, just something that's going to guide you through this painting process or through the drawing process so we can have somewhere to start. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down. If this is the center of my circle, I'm going to come down from that about an inch and then over about a half of an inch. This is going to be the bottom part to my mouth, or my muzzle, whatever you want to call it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect from over here. I'm going to come down and just kind of scoop it into where that the mouth is going to be. And then on the left hand side, I'm going to come almost in a straight down position from my circle like that. And then just bump it out just a little bit where we'll have our nostril of sorts kind of representing out and through there. And this doesn't have to be perfect. We'll give it some extra information as we paint in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my neck area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come from, we'll say from the mouth area, come over to the right, just past my circle area, so a little bit to the right of that, and then I'm going to come down just a little bit further than my mouth. This is going to be the inside, or the place where I stop my neck. It's going to be hidden by the smokiness of the fog. And then I'm going to come over to the right from this, I would say maybe about 2 inches or so, and maybe up a little bit, something like that. I'm going to connect these two to my head. This one is going to be connected to right about here with an arcing type of a motion, like this. This will be the inside part of the neck, and then this one is going to be connected to the top of the head with another arcing type of motion. So something like this will give me my the back side of the neck. And again, yours doesn't have to be exactly the same shape as mine, just something like that will work. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my wings on. So I'm going to have my wings, the points of them are going to be a little bit to the right of the head and straight up. So if this is the center of my canvas, I'm a little over to the right, maybe about an inch or so, and then down about 2 inches. That'll be one corner, and then just go to the right of that about an inch, inch and a half, and make another corner. These are the tips of the wings. I'm going to connect this one to my head or my neck, somewhere in this vicinity, and I'm just going to give it an arcing line, something like that. And then I'm going to connect here all the way down to the bottom area, somewhere, I would say, in between these two. If you just kind of drop it down, maybe about 2 inches, somewhere in through here, you can connect this with a big arcing motion. So something like this will give me that arc. And then I'm going to actually do another arc on the outside of this. So I'm going to connect these 2 points with another arc like this. This is going to show me the outside portion of my wing. So something like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing over on the left-hand side. So I'm going to take here and I'm going to connect it all the way down in this region down here. So if this is the bottom of my mouth, I'm going to come down maybe about 2 or 3 inches, and about to the left maybe about an inch, inch and a half. And then I'm going to connect this with here with a big swooping type of line. So I'm going to start from here. I'm even going to go up a little bit. So I'm going to go up a little bit. I'm going to come down in through here, and then I'm going to connect it down into this little tip of the wing. You can even kind of curve it a little bit at the bottom like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing like I did on the other one, which is have a exterior type of shape. So again, starting right in through here, kind of disconnect it at some point. I'm only about maybe an inch, inch and a half wide in through here. And then you could even get it a little bit wider as it comes down in through here. So maybe something like this will work. And then I just kind of swoop it back into this little point in through here. I do need an inside edge to this one. So I'm going to have my inside edge. We're going to see a lot of the inside of this one, whereas this one we just see a portion. So I'm going to go about half the distance between the edge of the wing and the head, make myself a little bit of a marker. That's where I'm going to scoop it and hit it. And when I come down in this direction, I'll hit the wing right in through here. So I'm going to take this like this. I'm going to scoop it back. That's my chalk is not cooperating with me. I'm going to scoop it back like this, and then maybe scoop. Oh, I think I'm going to miss my mark. We're going to go a little bit further, something like that. And of course, you can adjust yours as much as you need to. So my mark was a little off there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself a tail. So my tail, I want to come kind of out of this section in through here. It's going to ride along the bottom of my canvas, and then it's going to kind of snake out over here. So I'm going to make myself 2 marks over here. One's going to be right about here, and one's going to be right about here. And then I'm going to make myself another marker down at the bottom of my canvas. So if you travel straight down from here, down to the bottom of your canvas, and over to the left about an inch or so, that'll give you, make sure that you guys can see where I'm putting this. So right about here. And then on the right-hand side, I'm going to have a mark right about here. So if you come over from here and stop about an inch away from the canvas, the edge of the canvas, that'll work there. And then at the bottom of the canvas, come straight down from here and over to the right about an inch. And we're going to connect all of these dots. So this is going to be like my snaky part over here. So I'm going to connect here to here with a little snaky motion. So come in, out, and hit my mark in through there. And then I'm going to do just a curved line to mark here to here. So I'm going to come way out in through here and then meet my bottom marker down in through here. And then I'm going to connect this one to here. Following this snaky type of shape, I'm going to make it a bump up just a little bit in the center as well. So I've got it in through here. I'm going to snake it down like this. I'm going to kind of bump it up in through here and then just ride it along, making it smaller and smaller as it disappears to that little marker in through there. And that is all I'm going to do for my outline. You can make any little adjustments that you want, especially since we did it with chalk. And then when you're done, you can put your chalk away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to do the base coat for our dragon. I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors I'm going to use are rust and yellow. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to be doing most of it with my burnt sienna or rust color, and then I'll be using rust and yellow for some of the sections. So I've got my medium brush, I've got rust paint on my brush, and really all I'm going to be doing right now is coloring in these sections. I'm going to do my head first, and I'm covering right up to my chalk mark. This is a time where you could certainly adjust the shape of it if you wanted to be of a, bump out a little bit or more square in areas. The beautiful part about dragons is you can customize them. They don't need to look like, you know, like a horse. They can look as mystical and magical and fantasy-esque as you want them to. So feel free to have fun with the shape of the head or the body or the wings or anything like that. So I'm just kind of giving myself a nice coat to start us off with the head. And when I get down to the bottom of the neck, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give myself kind of like a fade it into the blue. So I don't have much paint left on my brush right now, so I'm just going to kind of pull this down into this blue area. Because I have such a dark background, what will happen is where the paint is thinner, where the burnt sienna is thinner, when it dries, it will be darker than it is when it's wet because of that color that we have underneath it. So I'm utilizing that to my advantage on areas such as this where it's going to, I wanted to kind of fade into where that smokiness is going to come from. So I'm just going to give myself a soft edge to the bottom of that. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the inside portion of my wings. So I'm going to do a directional brush stroke for the application of the paint within the inside of my wings. And the reason why I'm going to be doing that is so I can, again, utilize the darkness from behind here to give me some texture in these wings. So I'm starting up at the top. I did my edge in through there, and then what I'm going to do is from this top part, I'm going to just kind of bring my brush down in this curved manner. So this is going to, again, help me to get some detail in the inside of the wing without having to really do much to it. So I'm just, it's thicker up at the top and then I just pull it down. So I'm almost kind of streaking it down at the bottom, and it will take on some of that navy blue underneath. I'll do the same thing to this one over here. So I'm going to start right up at the top. Now the only thing is I want it to kind of be streaky when it hits the back of this head. So I don't lose the definition between the both of them. So I'm going to start pretty heavy up at the top. I can bring it right to my chalk mark and then just kind of lift my brush away from the canvas as I'm nearing that head portion. So I can bring it all the way down behind the neck in through here. And again, this is just helping me to get some information into the wing. So something like that. Then I'm going to color the tail. The tail, I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just going to color it in a solid color right now. It again may take on a little bit of streakiness just because of the paint color that I'm using, but I'm not worried about that at this point because we are going to be doing an entire second coat on this tail. So really what I'm doing right now is just providing myself with a nice base coat for the other information that we're going to be putting on top of it, similar to how I did the head. Just not really concerned about the direction of my brush stroke, just really concerned about getting, my only concern is just providing myself with a base coat in through here. And then what I'm going to do once I've got my tail colored in here, I'm going to be using rust plus yellow on my brush in order to get the exterior portion of the wings colored in. So I'm going to be using both of those colors in order to give myself a different tone to this rusty color that we're using. So that'll give the outside, it'll start giving us a little bit more information on the outside. So I picked up rust plus my deep yellow, and I'm going to just color in this exterior section of the wing with both of these colors on my brush. So you'll find that they're going to intermingle with one another. You might get some spots that are more of the burnt sienna color, some spots that are more yellow. Whatever happens, just let it happen. This is just intended, again, to give us a nice different tone to the color and allow us to have a little bit more information. I think I'm actually going to pull out a couple little pointy little pieces here on the edge just to give myself maybe the effect of I don't know, more information on my dragon wings. You can put spikes on them, you can put feathers on them, you can really have fun putting any kind of details that you want. We'll have a whole step of doing fun details, but that, I guess I was just feeling it at that moment. So this outside wing here, again, just yellow and rust are on my brush at the same time. And you can see as I'm applying it, you can tell that it's a little bit lighter because I have that yellow on my brush with the burnt sienna, so it is showing up as a different color next to the inside portion of the wing that we did. And then I'm just kind of slowing down, bringing it all the way out to my chalk mark. If there's times where you don't want to cover up your chalk mark because you feel like you want to morph that shape a little bit more, that's fine. Just leave the chalk, let the paint dry around it, and then once the paint is dry, you can erase that chalk with a little bit of water, or you can paint over it with your background color, whatever is easier for you. And because I did these little flip outs on that side, I think I'm going to put a couple of little flip outs on this side too, just to keep it consistent. And then what we're going to be doing is we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your base coat for your wings and the whole body, you can wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint highlights and shadows on our dragon. So we're not going to do any of the little details like the spikes on the head or the scales on the tail or anything like that. We're really just looking to give some contour highlights and shadows to tell us that where the inside of the wing is, where the outside of it is, give this tail a little bit of shape so it's not just a flat color, and same thing with the head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using my medium brush. I'm going to be using black, rust, yellow, and white. And what I'm going to end up doing is put my shadows on first, and then I'm going to blend that shadow into the main color of whatever section I'm on, and then I'll put a highlight for that particular section. So I've got my medium brush. I'm going to start with a little bit of black. We're going to do the inside of the wings first because that, I think, will get us all nice and warmed up. So I've got black on my brush. What I'm going to be doing is I'm underlining this exterior portion with black paint like this, just kind of bringing it up pretty far down this left-hand side. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of rust on my dirty brush. So I have black plus rust on my brush, and I'm just pulling it down. So I want that upper little corner of the inside of this wing to be pretty darn dark. So that'll give the appearance of it kind of being scooped in and under that exterior part of the wing. So that's what I'm going to be doing in that section. And I'll do the same thing over here. So just bring a little bit of black onto my brush. I'm going to underline this, this lighter section like this, or give it like that line in through there. Start pulling this black down in the same type of way that I did the burnt sienna, and just kind of pulling it like that. And then pick up a little bit of the burnt sienna just to make sure that they blend in as much as I want them to. That's all I'm going to do for the insides. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do the shadow on my tail. So I really just want this to look like it's got a little bit of dimension to it. So this is probably going to be the trickiest shadow part, because I want it to look like it's shadowed at the part that's hitting the ground. So this part would be hitting the ground, this bottom part would be hitting the ground, this part would be hitting the ground, and this part. So kind of the bottom side of each one of these sections. So I'm just wiping my brush off on my paper towel. I'm going to pick up a teeny bit of black paint, and I'm going to kind of give you an idea of where these shadows are going to go. So this one's going to go at the bottom side of this part where it kind of snakes around like this, and I just kind of fade it into this corner area. I'm going to do some at the bottom of here. So I don't have much paint on my brush, just kind of rubbing it into that burnt sienna. And you might find that you need to pick up the burnt sienna as well. Like I feel like I want to blend this in a little bit more, so I just picked up a little bit of the burnt sienna to get it to blend in. So something like that. And same thing over here, just give myself a nice little nice little blend in through there. You can rub the brush a little bit. Tiny bit more black to give myself a little bit more shadow down at the bottom side of this piece of the tail in through here. And you don't need much paint if you're going to use this kind of rubbing type of technique. But if your paint isn't blending with a rub, you could certainly utilize a little bit more moisture on your brush if you need to get it to kind of blend out. I'm going to put a little bit on this underside right in through here. So I'm seeing this as kind of touching the surface that the snake is lying on, and then maybe a little bit in through here. Don't worry about going over into the blue. That'll be fine if you end up hitting that blue a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some of my burnt sienna just to make sure the shadowy part blends in. I did not wash my brush. I just picked up some burnt sienna in order to make sure that I have a nice coverage throughout the tail area in through here. So this is where the tail to me is going to have its lighter spot in through here, and I'll show you how to get that highlight on there in a second. I just want to make sure that the base color is blended in with the shadow, and then I'll start adding the highlight in after. I'm going to do my shadow on my neck portion first, and then we'll come back and do the highlight in through here. So that's looking good to me there. I'm going to go ahead on my neck and put my shadow on my neck. So I just picked up a little bit of black paint again. I'm going to go shadow underneath where the head is and just pull it down like we did on the wings, something like this. You could even put a little bit of shadow on the underside of the head if you wanted to. I'm not going to do too much there, and just making sure this blends in. So picking up a bit of my rust as well. So I got my shadow on in through here, and then just blending it out a little bit. Well, I'm going to put some nice detail on this neck as well. I just wanted that little bit of a contour underneath the neck so we could see that it has some kind of additional detail. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to start putting some highlights on. So I washed and dried my brush. My highlights for my wings are going to be out on these outer banks in through here. So I'm going to be using burnt sienna, yellow, and white. So I'm going to start with just burnt sienna and yellow just to kind of get the area a little wet. And once I've got it a little wet, then I can pick up a tiny touch of white paint and just give myself this little bit of a highlight. I'm not looking to do much other than to make sure I've got some good shape on here, make sure I've got something that tells the story that this is the outside piece. I don't need it to be uber bright. I just wanted to give the information that it is the exterior part of this wing. So I do want it to be kind of brighter than any of the other parts of the wing, but I'm still just using this light kind of sketcherly type of brush stroke to give the information of a highlight. I'm going to do the same thing over on the right hand side. So just, I didn't wash my brush, but I picked up burnt sienna and yellow to get it a little wet. And then once it's got a little bit of moisture to it, now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white paint, give myself a little bit of a bright highlight. I think I need to tip this over here too. My little chalk is bothering me, so I want it a little bit brighter over there. There we go. So a little bit of white on my brush, and yellow and rust. White, yellow, and rust is going to give me that bright highlight. And then of course I'll just bring out some of these little tips. And again, I'm just kind of elevating the lightness of this outer section, not having it a solid color, just giving it some texture with these highlights and telling the viewer that it is on the outside. My tail, I'm going to wash and dry my brush for my tail because I'm going to use more of just rust and white for the tail's highlight. So my highlight's going to be kind of on the upper side of the tail. So I'm going to just kind of, with my wet burnt sienna, kind of give you an outline where it's going to go. It's going to be here, and then as it wraps around here, this is where the highlight will go. So I'm thinking of it on the top side of the tail itself. So as I'm doing this, I'm kind of just wetting it with my burnt sienna, and then I will add a touch of white to it. So I have now burnt sienna plus white on my brush, and I'm going to give myself this highlight on this top portion of the tail, and I'll get it to blend down into the mid-tone burnt sienna that we had on that tail itself. So we're going to be doing scales and other information on the tail, and you'll have the wonderfully forgiving smoke that we're going to add later. So if something goes wrong and it didn't turn out exactly how you had anticipated, don't worry, you'll be able to disguise any areas that didn't come out to your perfection when we go to put that smoke on there. And I'm just kind of blending it down into that neighboring color, so something like this. And of course you can fiddle with it as much as you want to, but that's looking pretty good to me. Maybe a little bit more over in through here just to make this look like it really is the front section of this tail. And of course you could even do a different color if you wanted to. Your tail and your wings and your your spikes or whatever, you really could use your imagination on these pieces to get it to be customizable to whatever type of dragon you would like to have. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this same kind of process on the head. So just burnt sienna is where I'm going to start. I'm going to have just my highlight on the top portion of my head and through here, maybe a little bit coming down the top side of the back of the neck, and then down the nose a little bit, so maybe a little bit down, or down the front of the face I should say, so maybe a little bit down in through here. So again, I've just got the burnt sienna on my brush right now. I'm wetting this area with the burnt sienna, then I'm picking up a tiny bit of white paint to add that highlight onto it and just get it to blend out into that into the mid-tone, so something like this. And again, we're going to have lots of fun details on top of this, so if yours doesn't turn out perfect, no worries. And then once you've got this done, again, I'm putting a little bit of that highlight on the bridge of the nose, so to speak, somewhere in through here, so we've got a little bit of an illuminated value to this front area as it's looking down towards the other part of the canvas. And then once you've got this done, we're going to be utilizing our, what are we going to do next? We're going to actually use our large brush for the next step. So we going to use the large brush? Yeah, we're going to use the large brush for the next step. So you can put the medium brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're going to be painting the scales on the tail and on the neck. I know I said I wanted to use my large brush, but I was wishy-washy and I've changed my mind. I'm going to use my small brush for the next step. It'll be easier to do these. I was thinking perhaps I was going to do a different step, but I'm deciding to do my scales now. So what I'm really going to do is I'm just going to give the illusion or the impression of scales. I'm not going to be doing anything with fine-tuned detail. I really just want to give a quick impressionistic representation of some scales. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using black, burnt sienna, and white. And how I'm going to start this is I'm going to start it with some watered down black paint. So I'm actually taking a couple of drops of water and thinning out a little bit of my black paint. So it's like an ink type of consistency. I want it pretty thin. It can even be on the translucent side, but I want to have this fluidity to it because I'm going to be doing these continual quick kind of swipe marks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself almost like a gridded pattern on the tail that will be putting the scales within. So I've got my thinned out black paint on my brush. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just start anywhere on the tail at the top side, and I'm going to give myself a curved line coming down towards the base. And I'm going to do as many of those as I want to. So every time I feel like I'm running out of paint, I just kind of reload and just keep that pattern going throughout the side of the dragon, or the tail of the dragon. So I just kind of keep going. And once I get to this part where I feel it's like the top of the dragon, I can just kind of start at the top in through here and just kind of give myself these marks going in that direction because I know that they would fall over in a different way on the other side. So I'll get to that in a second. Let me just finish the rest of my motion for this particular one. So then I'm just going to kind of continue this over in this direction, staying kind of at the top side or the highlighted area of my tail. And then as you go around this corner, it gets a little confusing. So I'm going to take the same pattern from here up on this top side and kind of go like this. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in the opposite direction. So again, you can really kind of start anywhere and then just kind of take it and give yourself an opposite type of pattern in through here. And again, the watered down black paint is going to give you this fluidity to your brush stroke, and just kind of roll with it. They don't have to be spaced exactly the same distance apart. Again, a lot of it's going to be hidden with smoke and the other effects, but this is just going to kind of give us that you know, the impression of the scales. So then on the other side in through here, I can just kind of go with my intuition and give myself some more curved lines around that, what the shape that I feel that would be. So I know that my lines will get a little bit more faint when they dry because I am using the water within my brush, and then just do the same thing over on this side. Just kind of use my intuition to put the curves in the direction that I feel that they would be going on that side. And then once I've got them in there, I'm going to do the same thing up on the back of the neck. So again, just my watered down black paint, and I'm just going to bring it to right about here because I'm going to have some other detail on the underside of the neck. So I'm just kind of bringing my stripes down in this direction, re-wetting my brush, and then I'm going to bring them in, where am I going to stop them? I think I'm going to just kind of stop them on the back side of this neck in through here, and then just kind of give myself these curves. So once I've got my grid type of pattern, this will be hidden with some fun spiky details I'm going to put on. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put little light spots within the scales. So again, I'm just going to kind of fly through this, not giving it too much thought, but I have burnt sienna and white on my brush, and I'm just going to kind of rub in a little mark in these squares. So I'm going to put them probably a little bit lighter at the top highlighted part of the body part that I'm focusing on. So right now I've got a little extra white on my brush, and you can see I'm just kind of rubbing it into my little squares. I don't need to do much. I'm really just kind of, right now I'm just kind of dotting my brush, giving myself the little impression of some kind of texture on these little scales. I need a little more white to get to these ones. So I'm starting with the top ones because I have a little bit more white on my brush right now. And again, these ones back here could just be little dots. And then as I work my way down, I picked up more rust on my brush. So this is maybe I need a little more white. So I've got a little bit of maybe a little touch darker of the color. And I don't even really need to go all the way down because again, I know that I'm going to be putting some smoke down at the bottom, but you could certainly get more invasive with the decorative design and get yours to be, you know, almost photorealistic. If you want to add a lot of that detailed information, you could have these in a curved type of decorative way. So you could curve your brush. Think of it like maybe the scales on a mermaid's tail. You know, you can really just have fun with the elements to it, to getting it to look realistic or, you know, fantasy-esque. So I'm going to start up on these ones as well. So again, just the white and the burnt sienna, and towards the highlighted area of that section, you can get them a little bit lighter, and then as you move towards the darker area, just pick up a little bit more of the burnt sienna, and that's going to get them to go a little bit darker. And you can see I'm not filling in the whole square. I'm just really putting like a little polka dot or a pock mark, so it shows the darkness around it. It shows that little black line, and then you can just fiddle with it as much as you want. If you want it to look, you know, have a little decorative bump on the outside of the skin, or the whatever we want to call this. You can just kind of bump it out, give it a little bit more texture in through there. And then for the next step, we are going to be using our large brush. So once you've got this done, you can put your small brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint some smoke on the ground, or fog, or mist, whatever you'd like to refer to it as. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are my navy blue, white, and black. And how I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to be concentrating on kind of getting this center area the lightest, and making sure that I hide the bottom of this neck, and hide where the non-existent body is supposed to be. So you notice we didn't do a body. We're hiding that place with smoke or mist. So I'm going to make sure that I've got some good smoke in through there. I want a place where my little person is going to be standing, so I'll put some nice bright smoke in through there. I want this to kind of look like the floor of wherever it is they are. So I'm going to have my smoke kind of moving around, and oops, I had wet paint on my finger, moving around and getting in through there. I am going to have smoke at the bottom, or fog at the bottom of my canvas, and I also want it to look like that it's all within the atmosphere. So I'll put a little bit around the edges, a little bit behind my dragon's head, and a little bit coming into the wings a little bit. So the trick here is just to try and control yourself. And what I mean by that is you don't need to pick up a super ton of paint, especially white, because your tendency, if you have a ton of paint on your brush, is just to, oh no, and keep moving it around, and you'll end up covering up all the other stuff that you did. So I recommend you start slowly with very little bit of paint on your brush. You can even do like a dry brush type of scrubbing technique, and then the more confident you become with the quantity of paint, then you can start picking up a little bit more and more. I'm going to recommend us that we're going to start up in the outer banks, so we can get our brush kind of nice and warmed up and ready. And if anything goes wrong out here, we can always just let it dry and go back over it with the dark blue. But the detailed areas are the areas that we want to have a little bit more caution with. So I put my background color blue plus a teeny tiny bit of white on my brush, and I'm just going to start kind of moving it around. I'll put a little bit up in the corners. You don't need a lot of white in your smoke type of mixture. I'm going to bring it down in through here. The white will be very powerful as you go through this process, so just a little bit on your brush will go a long way. Like this is even a little bit too light for me, so I'm going to bring back a little bit more of my background color. So because I didn't use a lot of paint, I know that I can come back and adjust it whenever I want to. If I had put too much and brought it too far in, then it would have been a little bit more challenging, but I can just kind of, I know it's going to dry pretty fast, so I can correct it on the fly. Now I'm going to start working behind him. I did not reload my brush, so I'm working with the remnants on my brush, and I'm just going to kind of rub it right around that head, so I have a little bit of that smoke kind of appearing behind there, and then just kind of letting my brush run out of paint. That's a really great and easy way to add the effect of translucent type of smokiness, is to just let yourself, if you're using a nice firm brush like I'm using, just let yourself run out of paint. That's going to allow you to get these really kind of translucent areas that are going to show that whatever color was behind it plus whatever you're putting on top of it. And what we're going to try not to do is make this look like we're painting around the animal. So if you have to bump into the animal, that's fine. We're going to be doing more, or is it an animal or a beast? I'm not quite sure what dragons are technically called, but we'll call it, I don't know, we'll call it a dragon, and we'll be safe by calling it that. And then, so what you want to do is, if you have to, just bump right into it, and we can fix that by when we do the details on it, as opposed to painting, making it look like we're painting around it. So I just reloaded my brush with a little bit of my blue plus a teeny tiny bit of white paint. I'm going to put a little bit of this smoke up in through here so it looks like it's kind of coming out from from the floor area. Going to just kind of cover up the bottom portion of the neck in through here, scoot it up in between this wing in through here. And again, I'm just using my base color plus a teeny tiny bit of white paint, not much at all. And that's going to help me to control the intensity of it. So as I get in through here, I feel like I got too much paint on my brush, so I'm going to wipe it off on my paper towel. And then this is going to be the floor area. So I can utilize a little bit more white if I want to. I can even just bring it right to the edge of my tail portion. I'm going to come over in through here. I want this to look like it's kind of wrapping around the certain aspects of my dragon. So I'm actually going to cross this over this wing in through here. So again, not much paint on my brush, just kind of bringing it right over this section so it looks like the tail or the wing is just kind of peeking through there a little bit. And then I'm going to do just bring some in through here, making sure it all looks like it's connected with one another. I think I need a little bit more white in through here just to make sure that that covers enough. Sometimes, less is more, and I just kind of keep adding as it's drying. If I say, oh, that's not, I can't see it enough, I just kind of keep picking up a little bit of white. So I am going to use black and white as a gray mixture in a minute, but right now I'm just kind of laying out where I want all of this to be. I know I want this to look like the tail is on the ground in through here, but I still want it to be surrounded by a little bit of the smokiness. So again, just kind of doing that. I'm going to put a little bit down at the bottom. So again, I'm still just going into my dark blue plus a teeny tiny bit of white paint to give myself the information as to where I want this to be represented. Just kind of rubbing it down towards the bottom of my canvas. Ooh, I want it to come over the tail in through here. So again, I'm going to just kind of cross right over my tail like this, maybe a little bit more white on my brush to cross over this tail in through here. Get that travel in through there. And I don't want to overdo it. So I like the detail of the bottom of the tail, so I'm going to leave some of that. I just want to kind of give the information that it is, on the ground or wherever they are right now. Maybe I'll cross it over a little bit in through here, just hide this portion of the tail. And now that I've got it pretty well laid out where I want all of my areas to kind of cross over and be kind of representational with the smoke, now I'm going to just kind of elevate it a little bit. So I want a tiny bit of gray paint. So again, I didn't wash my brush, but I am going to pick up a tiny bit of black plus a tiny bit of white paint. So little, just a teeny tiny bit of white paint. And then I'm just going to start adding little bits of gray smoke. I think I need a little bit more white paint in through there. So the gray is going to just give you another textural element to the smoke so it doesn't look too flat. I know I want my boy kind of in through here, so I'm going to put a little bit of extra light grayish type of smoke in through here just to make it look like there's a floor to there. And then maybe a little bit more in through here, maybe a little bit more in through here. So I'm just going to kind of keep elevating this lightness with my black and my white. Some areas I might have more gray, some I might have more white, but it's going to be just kind of a visual preference. I'm going to kind of just get this a little bit more like it's got a little bit more fogginess down in through here. Maybe just bring this lightness over here. And I just kind of build my way to the light. So that way so I'm not overdoing it, just kind of allowing myself to give it this mystical fogginess and just maybe bring in a little bit of this gray in through here. And then I just kind of keep working with at this point, working with my white and my gray. And I just keep building my layers in a slow manner so that way I don't ever kind of overdo it. I can just kind of keep looking and saying, oh, I want this area a little bit lighter, or oh, I want that area a little bit darker. If you ever do it too bright, you can always bring back some of that navy blue. I'm getting mine lighter at the bottom of my canvas as opposed to the top of my canvas, so it draws our eye right into this area. And then just kind of keep fiddling with it as much as you want to. I might fiddle with mine a little bit more, and then once you've got it the way that you want it, we will be switching to our small brush for the next step. So you can keep fiddling with your smoke, get it as bright or as foggy as you want, and then you can put this large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our facial features. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, yellow, white, and rust. And what I'm in essence going to do is I'm going to mark out where I want my eye and my nostril and my mouth, and then I'm going to just paint some fun details around it. And again, remember, this is an imaginary beast, creature, so you can certainly make yours into whatever you'd like. So I'm going to start with a little bit of black paint on my small brush. I'm going to put my nostril in place. So for me, I already have a bump right here on the left-hand side. You might have one too. If not, you can imagine where it'd be, and then I'd go to the right a little bit. I'm going to give myself a little bit of an oval type of shape for my nostril. Again, you don't need to do much of anything. Then I'm going to give myself a little tiny line for where I want my mouth to go, so something in through there. Then I'm going to use this black to give myself an eye. I'm going to have my eye in this vicinity. I'm going to give myself a curved line like that, and then I'm going to give myself kind of like an almond type of shape for the main shape of the eye, so something like this. And your eye can be big or small, again, whatever you'd like for it to be is totally fine. So once I've got those in place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put some little highlights and color to my areas. So I want little highlights for the nostrils. So I'm going to put yellow, rust, and white on my brush at the same time. And you can have equal parts. You can have more or less of one color than the other. It's totally fine. I'm going to give myself a highlight on the top of this nostril like that. And then I'm going to do a highlight on the top of the other nostril. That would be on the other side of the face. Then what I'm going to do with the remnants on my brush is I'm just going to kind of lighten up a little bit of the tip of that nose. You don't have to lighten up the tip of the nose if you don't want to. That's going to be a preference on your part if you wanted to. You could even bring a little bit of that lightness up the center of the nose if you wanted to. And if you felt that this was too much, you could certainly bring some of that rust or even black back in order to dull down any marks that might be too bold for you. Then I'm going to go up to the eye. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow and a tiny touch of white on my brush. So yellow plus a teeny tiny bit of white, hardly any paint at all. And I'm going to give myself the colored part of the eye. So I've got mostly yellow, but again, there's a tiny touch of white on my brush. And I'm just going to kind of give myself a little bit of a similar type of shape, like an almond type of shape within that black area. So I'm leaving the black outline around the exterior of it. Then what I'm going to do is, while that's drying for a minute here, I'm going to put some highlights around the eye. So I'm going to not wash my brush, but I'm going to pick up that same color combination, white, yellow, and rust on my brush at the same time. I'm going to give myself some like an eyebrow type of area in through here. So we've got almost like the eye socket of the eye. Then I'm going to pull it out almost like feathers or eyelashes or something along this back side of the eye. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of my burnt sienna and white so I can get maybe a little bit more of a pinky type of color. And I'm just having fun with pulling these out and getting them to be almost like long eyelashes of sorts. I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight underneath the eye in like this too. So just whatever that remnants were on my brush, just kind of pulled it in down there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash my brush because I want to put a little pupil in my eye. So I wash my brush. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black paint, give myself a little bit of a pupil down here on kind of the left-hand side like this. And of course your pupil can be whatever size you'd like. I'm going to maybe just dull down a little bit of the top of that eye so it's not so bright. And then I'm going to wipe my brush off and pick up a tiny bit of white paint so I can put a little sparkle in the eye. So I'm going to put a couple of little sparkle dots near the pupil part of that eye, so something like that. And then I'm going to wash my brush one more time and I'm going to put some eyelashes of sorts with black paint out this back right hand side of the eye. So I've got black on my brush and I'm just going to kind of pull out some nice long dragon eyelashes. And you can certainly intermingle as much of this color with as you want. I'm picking up a little bit of rust just to make sure that I've got this nice and kind of energetic type of look around these eyes, and you can fiddle with it, make it into whatever you imagine your dragon, your dragon's eyes to be. And then once you've got it all nice and fiddled with and you've got all the detail that you want, we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our dragon. This is going to include all the little details on the neck. We've got little markings on the neck. I've got some spikes at the head and some scales on the face. Again, you can certainly decorate yours whatever way that you want, but I'm going to have some fun here. So I'm going to start with some burnt sienna and I'm going to put all my spikes in place. My dragon spikes. So I'm going to have some coming out of this area on the head in through here. So again, you could have as many as you want. I'm just going to start with some with my burnt sienna and just give myself the area of which I want them to be. So I've got one in through there, maybe one over here. I'm gonna have like 4 or 5 coming out in through here. They're gonna cross over the neck and get, go into where that wing is. So that's looking pretty good to me. Now I'm gonna designate where I want my spikes on the top of the head to be. So I'm gonna have one kind of where the eye is. If I just travel to the top of the front of the head in through here, I'm gonna have a smaller one in through here. And then I'm going to have maybe 4 or 3 more progressive ones that are going to get bigger and bigger as I get towards the top of the head. So maybe one in through here. And again, yours can be, of a different formation than mine. I've got mine a little bit skinnier at the top and they get a little bit thicker as they are meeting the top of the head. So they're skinnier at the top and then thicker at the bottom. But yours, again, could be whatever you'd like. And then I've got this one in through here. Once I've got the main color on them, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pick up some black paint. I'm going to do a bottom mark on them with black paint on the bottom side of these spikes on the neck like this. Just a black stripe is going to give me this start. I didn't even wash my brush. I just kind of picked up black. I'm going to do the same thing for the horn things on the head. So just a little bit of black paint on this back side. And again, if you want to do yours different colors, feel free to do so. I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel and just rub the bottom of these horns right in through here so they look like they are kind of going into the head a little bit, so that I have a little dark spot right as they touch the head like that. And then I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put a little highlight on these with yellow and white. So yellow and white are my colors on my brush, and I'm going to go on the top side of them. So yellow and white, I'm just giving a stripe. You could really make yours colorful. You could make yours subtle like I'm making mine with the color variation to the rest of the dragon. I've just got kind of like a two-tone type of dragon. You could have, blues and purples and greens, whatever speaks to you in your dragon making process is totally fine. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the horns. So yellow and white on this top side, just a little kind of quick swipe down them. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put some little scales on the face. So I'm just going to use a little bit of black paint, maybe a little watered down black paint so I have skinnier marks. And I'm just doing a whole bunch of little curved type of marks in through here just to give myself almost like a pattern of sorts. I'll do some at the top of the head as well, and you can put your curves in, you know, any direction. I'm just kind of curving mine in this direction towards like the top of the head, but you could of course make yours whatever way you want. Maybe put some in through here, and then once I've got as many curves as I want, maybe I'll put a couple coming down the front of the muzzle in through here. I'm going to put a little highlighted part, so washing and drying my brush, and then I'm going to just put a little bit of yellow and white on my brush, and I'm just going to put a little dot in them, and that's going to make them look a little three-dimensional. I'm not going over the black, I'm just going right next to the black, and I just kind of fly through this because I know that I don't necessarily want it to look super systematic, but I do want to kind of have those little bright pops of color. And if you wanted to, I'm thinking about it now, I think I want a little bit of this eye socket over on that side. So I'm just loading my brush with a little bit of rust yellow and white to give a little bit of a bump, similar to what I did to the nostril over here on the left side of the head, just to keep the authentic shape of that head. And then I just need to do some little neck detail. So I'll wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put yellow on my brush. And I'm going to start over here on the left edge of the neck. I have yellow, and I'm pulling it up in this curved manner, so it makes it look like it is coming out from the other side of the animal, and it gives the information that this is a curved piece of the body. So I start with yellow, and now I'm going to put a tiny bit of white on my brush and just kind of give myself a little pop of a highlight right at the edge as it's touching the edge of the skin. And then you can fiddle with this all you want, add more, subtract, put, you know, brighter spots, darker spots, whatever you want, but we will be using this small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this or wash this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to do for the next step is I'm going to be painting the little person. I'm using my small brush. The colors I'm using are probably all of them: black, white, yellow, rust, and blue. So what I'm really going to do is just do a really basic, simple silhouette of a little person reaching their hand up to the dragon's nose. You could have a little girl or boy, or maybe you want an adult doing this, but I'm just gonna have a little young person. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with just a vertical line with black paint. So I'm gonna find wherever my nose is or wherever I want that hand to touch, and I'm gonna come over to the left maybe about an inch or so. I'm gonna take from that and just bring it down, I would say maybe about 3 inches, 2 or 3 inches. It doesn't have to meet any perfect spot in your fog, because we're going to work around that. We'll just kind of put some fog around that in a minute. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make myself some shapes. I'm going to do a little circle for the head. That's going to be maybe about 1/2 inch wide by 1/2 inch tall. I'm going to do a little rectangle for the body. It's going to touch the circle because it's a little person with their head back a little bit, so the shoulders would be kind of high up near the head. So I'm just going to bring this out a little bit and bring this shirt down, I would say almost halfway between the neck and the bottom of the line. So something like this. And again, just using black to get us started. This doesn't have to be a perfect shape. This is just kind of a soft rectangle of sorts coming down from there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some pants. So what I really want to do is just kind of separate or make this come in a little bit from the edge of the shirt, and you can just kind of bump it out a bit. And then same thing on this side. Just I've got it a little bit in from the shirt, so that way we have a little bit of a difference between the shirt and the pants. So just another kind of rectangle where my pants are going to be. And then I got to put some arms. So the arm is going to come out from the shoulder in through here. So I'm going to give kind of like a diagonal from the shoulder, and I'm going to bring it right to my dragon's face in through here. And I'm even going to put a little bit on top of the dragon's nose, something like that. That's going to end up being our little hand of sorts. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just going to give the impression of a little cute person's body touching. And then on this side, I'm going to have the arm kind of almost like back behind the kid or down to the side. So something like this. And then just kind of maybe bring it out just a little bit. And we've got a little shirt on there, and then maybe a little hand coming out the edge. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to color it in. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm just going to bring the corners of this shirt out in a little more squared off way. I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to, you can really start anywhere that you'd like, but what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to while this is kind of drying for a second, I know that I want like a skin color for the hands and maybe a little piece of the face. So I'm just going to take my rust and put a little bit of white in it. So I can make myself a little kind of a peachy tone for the skin. I don't necessarily need to do anything fancy with it, just making sure that it's got some kind of representational skin tone in there. So that works for me. I'm going to take that. I'm going to kind of put a little line of it on the edge of the head on this right hand side. I'm not going for any kind of facial details. I really am just going for the impression of the edge of the cheek perhaps. I'm going to do the same thing for the hand. I do need the hand to have a little bit of a shadow underneath it so you can see it. So you can even leave just a little outline of that black around the edges so you can tell that it's the hand, or you can put an additional outline around it if you want. You can even bring it out past the nose if you feel that that would work too, or you can change it into a different color. I'm going to put a little bit on this hand over here. So this is just that peachy kind of color that we made, or pinky kind of color. Then I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm going to pick up just my burnt sienna and yellow. I'm going to give the boy some kind of brownish hair on top of the black. It'll look like it's a brownish tone, and just pulling this back in through here. I'm not doing much at all. I want the back side to be darker because it is, I'm seeing the dragon as my light source. I put a little bit more white on my brush just so I can highlight the top of my little person's head, and just pulling some of that color back so it looks like he's being maybe illuminated by our dragon. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some blue pants on. So I'm going to just wash and dry my brush. I'm putting blue, my ultramarine blue, plus a teeny tiny bit of white paint on my brush. I'm just going to put the essence of some blue pants here. You don't have to do much at all, just kind of put a little bit lighter on this right hand side so it looks like maybe he's wearing some blue jeans or something, and then just fading it back into this darker region back here. So again, I'm seeing this back side as the shadow. I'm putting a little bit more black on my brush here just so I can get that to kind of dissipate and make it kind of fade out. And then this shirt, I'm just going to put some little gray highlights on it so it looks like it's got a little bit of form to it. So I'm going to pick up black plus a teeny tiny bit of white paint, and I'm going to give a little maybe highlight on this shoulder so it looks like we've got a little bit of a light touching that shirt, maybe a little bit down on the side of the shirt in through here so it looks like, you know, again, the dragon is our light source, and just kind of illuminating the shirt a little bit, maybe even just pull down that gray so it looks like there's a little bit of movement to the shirt. And then on this back side, maybe just a little bit of that gray on this arm in through here, maybe a little bit on the shoulders. So not much of anything, just something that will provide a little bit of shape to it, maybe a little bit more lightness on this shoulder over here so we can see it. And then if you felt like you had to do anything more to the clothing, you can certainly, or the head, you can certainly manipulate that as much as you want. Again, I'm just kind of going for the little essence of it, but you want to be able to see it. So if you need to add extra lightness or darkness to enhance the contrast of it, then definitely go ahead and do that. I do want to put some more smoke or fog at the bottom here, so I'm just wipe my brush off, picked up a little bit of white, and I'm going to close off the bottom of his pants like he's in the smoke. And if you want to, you can pick up a little bit more black or your background blue, whatever you want to do, just to kind of get him to look like he's really immersed in the fog that is, you know, being perhaps brought in by the dragon. And then just kind of keep fiddling with it until you've got as much as you want on there. And then once you've got that done, we will be using our the same small brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it. Maybe a little more lightness on his hand here so we can see that a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Well, you can wash your small brush and dry it and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine with my small brush. I'm gonna go in the bottom left or the bottom right corner most of the time. So I'm gonna sign this one with black paint. I'm going bottom left. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a special symbol. Whatever you'd like for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. It's your painting. You get to sign it however you would like. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a magical dragon, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.